Welcome back, everybody, to the Podecito podcast. I am your host, Surreal469. Thank you, everyone, for joining me here as we look episode by episode at our favorite show collectively. I'm talking, of course, about the incomparable Las Vegas. This is episode 9. We are here for Year of the Tiger. This episode debuted December 1st, 2003. Now, one of the things I want to pick up on is these are, in fact, going in order, but the air dates obviously aren't exactly week by week because Las Vegas gets preempted every once in a while in their first season. The last episode to preempt this one, because we're already skipping to December, it was on October 27th, was the first time they got preempted for the Radio Music Awards. The next time was November 24th for an extended Fear Factor for 90 minutes and Average Joe. I barely remember. Average people doing sports stuff was, I think, the theory behind that show. So, yada, yada, yada. We skip a couple weeks. Year of the Tiger debuts December 1st, 2003. This episode was directed by Perry Lang, who his first directing job was in 1990 for Little Vegas. I think we've seen that before. He also did episodes of ER, Alias, yada, yada, yada. Skip a few. He does this episode, just this one episode of Las Vegas. His last directorial job was in 2018 for An Interview with God. So he's got some TV experience, Gilmore Girls, Popular, Nash Bridges, so he knows how to direct stuff. He knows how to make things look good. As well as the writers for this, Gary Scott Thompson, of course, the Puppet Master, as well as Adele Lim. Adele Lim, her first writing credit was in 2002, just a year before, as John Doe. She did an episode of John Doe. I don't remember that show from 2002, but apparently there was a show called John Doe. Can you imagine the search engine optimization for that? It's almost as bad as her second one, Las Vegas. Let me tell you, doing searches for Las Vegas is exceedingly hard and was hard even 5 years ago because it's such an ambiguous, ubiquitous name, Las Vegas, but needless to say, she also wrote 3 episodes of Las Vegas. This is her first episode, Year of the Tiger. She was also one of the writers of Die Fast, Die Furious, as well as the Season 2 episode Games People Play. So there's that experience for Adele Lim. Not to mention, her last 2 credits, she wrote the screenplay for Crazy Rich Asians. That was a bit of a successful hit, wasn't it, in 2018? Her last credited writing role was for Joyride just last year in 2023. That was Adele Lim, one of the co-writers of this episode. This is an action-packed, fast-paced episode, as we will get into. But some of you may be aficionados of the Chinese zodiac calendar and think, wait a minute, was 2003 the year of the tiger? No, it wasn't. 2003 was the year of the goat, or sheep, or ram, etc. But that is not the name of this episode. Why is that? Well, we'll get into that very shortly. As this episode starts, we whoosh down the Vegas Strip, and then we see Mike coming out of a section of the casino with a group of guys, and you see their name tags on them, so here's an early reveal. They are, in fact, grooms that are coming into town for the weekend of weddings, but before the weekend of weddings, of course, they have to
Ready, boys?
And let me tell you something, stripper buses are overrated. Like party buses are a bit overrated, if I'm being perfectly honest. I've been on a couple party buses. They're fine. There's definitely long sections of not doing nothing. It's long sections of boredom. It's fine. It sounds better than it really is. What I think the concept was they're trying to take the concept of being on a tour bus, but it's still on a bus. You're still going, generally speaking, long, at least periods of time, even if it's not distances. And it's slightly overrated, but in the early 2000s, party buses were a thing. And Mike runs across this stripper who's trying to pass her resume off to some other strippers. And she says she's a dancer, and she just does some dance moves for Mike. She is clearly drunk, and is clearly drunk the first time we hear her, and her falling almost into certainly into Mike's arms is proof that she is definitely drunk, and her staggering is also proof, not to mention the fact she doesn't get out of the way. Now, here's the other part of this. The bus is moving slowly. Like, the bus could have just stopped. The bus wasn't speeding. He was moving slowly. And even on a party bus, no matter what type of bus you're on, school bus, city bus, party bus, tour bus, you planning a trip with a, group, a field trip, whatever, the bus driver's paying attention to the road. That's their job. And the bus, again, wasn't moving that fast. It was moving rather slowly. He could have stopped. It's not like the bus driver was distracted or anything like that. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But generally speaking, the bus driver could have and probably would have and should have stopped. But for the sake of the show, because we got to get the plot going, the bus doesn't stop. And Mike has to save the lady, hey drunk lady. He has to save her. And tosses her, pulls her along with himself into a pile of trash or rummage or something off to the side. And she's so drunk, bags actually. And she's so drunk that she just passes out as soon as she lands. And we cut to the credits. This is a great time to talk about the actress who plays the drunk lady. Her name is Justine A. Moore. Her first credit was in Crossing Jordan as a bartender. Maybe it's the same woman. They're in the same universe. She could have traveled to Las Vegas not long after that. But before she traveled to Las Vegas, she took a stop in San Francisco to play a female demon in Charmed. Then she came to Las Vegas for this episode. Then her last credit was for The War at Home in 2006. She has a very small IMDb. It's really only 5 things. But that's Justine Moore. In this role, she's playing Taffy LaBeouf, a.k.a. the stripper who Mike saves. As the credits cut and we go back to the Montecito, we see some performers in a dragon costume, and they're dancing around, and even they're distracted by the beautiful women in Las Vegas. But let's make one thing perfectly clear. Mary is in charge. She wrangles the dragon. She talks to one of her assistants about the weekend of weddings. She gets everybody into position where they're supposed to be, or at least trying to get everybody into position where they're supposed to be. As this is happening, take note that you hear a drum beat, you hear a marching thing, and you actually see these guys, black tops, yellow pants, as they're playing. They're not playing anything, and you can clearly see this is not going to be the first time where you see background actors clearly not doing something. Like, I know for sound purposes, they need you to be quiet, but normally, or if the circumstance, you shouldn't see that they're clearly not playing, and you can clearly see that these guys are clearly not playing, especially the cymbal player. His cymbals are like 3 feet apart, and he's pretending to crash them. In any event, Mary runs into Sam, and Sam is trying to wrangle her people for the weekend. She's got some Chinese high rollers coming in, and one of them...
It's my high roller from Taiwan. He wants me to spoon feed him caviar.
It's not so bad.
From my navel. Ah, yes, caviar. Yes.
Oh my good. Well, listen, look. As inappropriate, and I hate that term, as that is for a business relationship, if you're going to swing for the fences, take a big swing. And that's a mighty big swing. The intent, look, the request is off the wall. But I'm not going to say I don't understand where that comes from with Sam. So, listen, he's wrong. He is wrong. He is totally wrong. But I get it. Anyway, Sam is wrangling her high rollers, and she talks to one of them in Mandarin, and Danny is impressed.
Ah, Li Shen Shen, Ning Hao.
Sis, when do you speak Chinese?
Mandarin, since I learned 80% of high rollers were Chinese.
And guess what? She's right. This show really was on the cusp of a lot of stuff. And Las Vegas really did make a huge, drastic shift towards catering more specifically and explicitly towards Asian tourists, Asian guests, Asian high rollers. Around this time, you started to see, and I talked about it before in a previous episode, one of my favorite games, Let It Ride, really started getting phased out not too many years after this. And also, you started to see fewer even regular blackjack tables, even different versions of poker tables. You started to see fewer of those because they pushed a lot of those out to make more room for more games that Asian players like to play, like Pai Gow and all the different versions of Pai Gow that there are. And you started to see a huge wave of Asian tourists. It's good for business. And this is around that time. And a lot of people didn't even necessarily see it. The media didn't even necessarily know it. I looked back for this episode to try to find some articles just to kind of see exactly where the zeitgeist was at the time. Most of the articles talking about the shift towards Asian clientele for Las Vegas came out around the end of the 2000s, 2007, 2008. I knew about it long before then. I could see it on the ground. And I saw this episode long before then, obviously. And it was definitely happening. Even the media hadn't picked up on it yet. Or at least weren't talking about it or whatever. But this is definitely a precursor to this. Las Vegas ahead of the curve. As the episode gets started, Ed comes in with a big whale for Sam, Mr. Zhao. And Sam talks to Danny about how that whole thing came about. How the Zhao sisters are going to school in New York. And she arranged the meeting for Zhao to come in from China to spend time with his girls. Enter the Zhao girls coming in the Chinese flag. And all the paparazzi are all over them. They are, at this point, a takeoff on the Hilton sisters. Do you remember who the Hilton sisters are, boys and girls? Well, the Hilton sisters are the precursors to the Kardashians. Directly. Kim Kardashian used to hang out and party with Paris Hilton around this time. Paris Hilton was the big deal. And then Kim Kardashian's tape leaked and her mother orchestrated the whole thing. And now for some reason they are a $1 billion corporation. The less said about that, the better. But that's the Zhao sisters. We then cut back to the surveillance area where Ed and Mr. Zhao talk. And Mr. Zhao basically breaks down to Ed that he wants his daughters out of the tabloids, at least for the time that he is spending there in Las Vegas. Now, it's not like they're little girls and he's on a business trip and he doesn't have time for them, but he wants them out of the papers in the meantime, before he takes them on this big family picnic. He is there to spend money. He is there to gamble and spend money. So him spending time with his daughters is sort of a secondary thing, honestly, for Mr. Zhao, but that's the circumstances that we're in. While we're sitting here talking about Mr. Zhao, let's talk about him for a minute. Mr. Zhao is played by Michael Paul Chan, who you have seen absolutely everywhere. Michael Paul Chan is a founding member of the Asian American Theater Company. His first credit was in Police Story as a teenage extortionist and as a gang member in 2 different episodes in 1975. He, a couple years later, teamed up with James Caan in the movie Thief as a waiter in a Chinese restaurant, so there's that connection. He then, not long after that, teamed up with future cast member Tom Selleck in Runaway in 1984. A lot of Gen Xers might know him as Data's father in The Goonies in 1985. He also did the original and the reboot of MacGyver. A lot of millennials might also know him, especially if you are of an Asian heritage, from The Good Luck Club. He played Harold in 1993. He's like the 4th or 5th cast member who, in doing their research, I'm finding also did work on that. Remember that Dennis Rodman show I talked about a couple episodes back? Soldier of Fortune? He was in that too for an episode in 98. I think the casting directors must just pick from their pool as they move on to other projects. He was also in The Invisible Man for an episode with Vincent Ventresca. Remember him? Elliot from the episode, from Michael and that again comes through. He was also in Static Shock. He was another cast member. He was on an episode of Nikki Cox's sitcom on the WB back in 2001. He played Dr. Chang. A lot of black millennials might know his voice at least. He played Jimmy Ho on the PJs. Remember the PJs? The PJs was a hilarious show, at least the first season was. And he played Jimmy Ho on it. He also, another crossover from Crossing Jordan. He played Yoshi on that show for an episode in 2003. He then comes to Las Vegas for two episodes. He is not, however, the same character in both. That's why, at least this past week, he was up for VIP guest star. He plays Mr. Zhao in this one, and then in season 4, Wines and Misdemeanors in 2007, he plays Larry Chin. So, not the same character, but 2 episodes of Las Vegas. A lot of people nowadays might know Michael Paul Chan. He secured a really good gig on The Closer, the Kira Sedgwick show on TNT, the not quite sister network of Las Vegas, because TNT was their secondary home after the series already ended, but he played Mike Tao in The Closer, as well as the spinoff or sequel show Major Crimes. So, you might know him from that. His latest credits are on The Resident. Remember that show when I talked about that, how terrible that show was? He was on that for 6 episodes through 2001. He was in Gremlins, The Secrets of the Magpie as the Lion just this past year as a voice. Last time you've seen, or the next time you'll see him, is on Between Borders as the judge. That movie is in post-production. That's Michael Paul Chan, and he is not reading Ed the Riot Act, but he is very particular about what he wants. He doesn't like the fact that our sleazy American tabloids have suddenly, for no reason, decided they're in love with his daughters. I agree with him. I've always hated this idea that we create celebrities out of these random rich girls for no reason that have no talent and bring nothing to the table. But here we are. Like I said, Kim Kardashian's entire family are billionaires off of nothing and no talent. And here we are still. And people base their lives on the decisions that these brats make. And here we are. And Mr. Chow, is, well, the actor's name is Chan. The character's name is Zhao. He is trying to, in his own way, stop that from happening. It's almost like he sees the future. I agree with him. I wholeheartedly agree with him. Ed says he's going to keep his best man on it. But we are only a few episodes removed, 7 in fact, from when the Montecito had this exact same problem with the senator. Matter of fact, it was even easier because all they were doing, because first off, the senator was secretly in Las Vegas and they had to try to keep away one reporter from breaking the news. These people are here publicly flaunting it, and a whole gaggle of paparazzi are all over the casino. They had both of them, Ed and Danny, Ed, Danny, Sam, and Mike. They brought damn near the whole team together. They assembled quite a bit of that Voltron robot to try to keep the senator away from the reporter, Aaron Walker. And now Ed is tasking just his lieutenant, to try to wrangle 2 subjects of multiple paparazzi for a few days. We'll see how that goes. In the meantime, we whoosh from the surveillance room, through the cameras, down to the Zhaos, dancing and hamming it up with bottles of champagne, pouring it on themselves with the dragon dancing behind them. And as they do, here's a really clever thing that Las Vegas does. They show what the covers will be of the Zhao sisters doing these things in front of the paparazzi and what the headlines will likely be when they show up. Now, here's another cool thing that they do. All of these magazine covers and newspaper covers that they show are real. Like, they're real magazines, or at least they were real magazines at the time. The first one is Vegas Magazine. That was a real magazine. The headline says, Zhao girls make a splash in the desert. The next one is Showbiz Weekly. Wowie Kazowie. Oh my gosh. And those headlines really like that. That's embarrassing. Are you writers? That's embarrassing. Sizzling Sisters take Vegas this time. And what that also does is that cuts to another scene. So now they're out of the Belisara. Now they're in Mystique. And now they are dressed more like baby doll, girly type aesthetic. They both have bows in their hair, super short skirts, etc. And they're laughing. And we get a shot of the poster for the Weekend of Weddings. This is Mary's big thing, Weekend of Weddings. I have a hard time, and she mentions this throughout the episode, that she managed to wrangle the press here for the Weekend of Weddings to give coverage for the Montecito. Even in 2003, I find it hard that she'd be able to wrangle a lot of press for something like this. Like, I feel like the most she'd be able to wrangle would be press for bridal magazines, and I know there's a bunch of those, but bridal magazines, maybe a couple of Vegas publications, but the press, like how much the press is this going to generate? In any event, we cut from that to Mike getting accolades as he's walking through the halls of the casino, people congratulating him, giving him high fives, etc. He is just soaking in the adulation. As he does, he meets two of our guest stars who are here for the Weekends of Weddings. One of them, their names are Karen and Bill, but the actress and actor's name are Sean O'Brien and Amy Stewart. We'll flip those and you'll see what I'm talking about. Karen was played by Amy Stewart. Amy Stewart, her first credited role is in Conquering Space, which was a short. There's no date on that. The next date I have for her was in an incarnation of Dragnet as Janet Cameron in 1990. She did a couple episodes of ER, The Practice, Las Vegas, Crossing Jordan. Again, Crossing Jordan for an episode. Look at that. She did Bones, NCIS, and NCIS LA. Skip a couple of things. Her last credit was just this past year on Grey's Anatomy. She played Diane Early in 2024. Her fiance on this show, Sean O'Brien, you have seen his face everywhere. His first credited role was with Christina Applegate in a show called Heart of the City in 1986. He was also on the original MacGyver for an episode in 91. Remember that movie I talked about, Heart and Souls, with Robert Downey Jr. in 93? He was in that movie. A year before that, he was with Robert Downey Jr. again in Chaplin. He was also in Exit to Eden. Remember that movie? Dan Aykroyd and Rosie O'Donnell go to a BDS island. Who greenlit that? Anyway, he was in a whole bunch of stuff. You've seen him in many other things. He was in the Princess Diaries movies. He was in Big Fat Liars Leo. He did Bill here. He was also, here's one thing of note. There was a show on UPN that was very short-lived, 10 episodes. It was called Abby, and it starred Sidney Poitier's daughter. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because her love interest on that show ended up being Kadeem Hardison. It was supposed to be him. He was cast in that original role as her love interest on that show. The premise of the show is Abby and her boyfriend break up, but they can't afford to live anywhere else, so they split the apartment. And her boyfriend is arrogant. And that's the conflict of the show that they have. He was supposed to be in that role. And there are a couple episodes on YouTube. Watching it, he's actually a better fit. But Kadeem Hardison was a bigger name, so Kadeem Hardison took the role. Skipping a few things, he was also in Crossing Jordan next year as someone else. He also was in one of my other favorite shows, Leverage, for an episode, but it was one of my least favorite episodes. So that's why I don't remember him, because I skip it on all my rewatches. He was also, you might know him most from the Olympus Has Fallen movies. He was in a couple of those. Olympus Has Fallen, London Has Fallen. He does some of the straight-to-video movies. Like, he's trying to get into the Hallmark business, and good for him, because his last credited movie is The Christmas Letter as Tigger Woods. Tigger with the, like the stuffed animal from Winnie the Pooh. Tigger Woods, just this past year. And he's got 9 upcoming projects that are in post-production, development, etc. He is a working actor. You've seen him everywhere. And he's really good at playing the affable, likable guy. Like, I can't even really think of him playing... I'm sure he has. If I go through his IMDb, he's played a bad guy. But it's hard to picture him like that. Like, he's always just the kind of... Again, this is another... They like casting these kind of likable goofballs. And Bill and Karen here are playing Vegas virgins. They're yokels. They also mention the pyramid, which seems to be a theme that the yokels mention the pyramid. Going back again to episode 2, where the yokels mention the pyramid. They so much so they wanted to get their picture taken with King Arthur in front of the pyramid to send back home. And Bill and Karen are on their way, and Mike and Mary talk about, as Mary introduces them and takes them off to the registration for the weekends of weddings.
Vegas virgins.
Yeah, and they got the fever. Bad.
Now, pay attention to Mike and Mary here in this episode. They interact a lot. They often, essentially storyline-wise, pass the baton to each other in terms of what you're paying attention to. But this was also an episode. Remember when I talked about the Mike and Mary shippers not too long ago? This is also an episode that feeds a couple of them. Now, Mike is asked to sign a picture, or at least a newspaper article, about him saving the stripper just last night from almost getting run over. Here's the thing, though. If you watch it, it's a real article. Someone actually wrote some stuff down. It's a real article. Fearless Samaritan saves woman from party bus. It's a real article. Written by Dominic Caballo. Yada, yada, yada. Mike's thumb is over some of it, but you can see a mention of the Cannon Blast, which will come up just a little bit later. That's a drink that one of the strip clubs named after him. Embassy board, who did it events. It was like something out of nowhere in the comics. They wrote an actual article for this. Okay, let's see what this second part of the article says. If it weren't for Mike Cannon, a young do-good wasn't there, she'd be... So they wrote it, but some of it is... Yeah. If it weren't for Mike Cannon, a young do-good wasn't there, she'd be street pizza. Much of the delight of the locals, where a local strip club has named a signature drink after him, the Cannon Blast. So they repeated that paragraph there. Much so that I ain't seen nothing like it, says Bort Escoto, who witnessed the events. It was like he appeared out of nowhere, here it is, and saved her, just like in the comics. Mike Cannon, an employee of Montecito, said in a statement, "It wasn't anything a civilized human being wouldn't do. I was just doing my duty as a good citizen, helping out people who aren't watching for themselves." The Montecito decided not to issue a statement pending a police investigation, but they decided to continue to welcome Young with the lure of big winnings, yanking the rug from, and that's all you can really see in that article. But again, the details. Las Vegas is really good on details, and they really are. Here comes Danny and Nessa talking about Mike's accomplishments, and Nessa comes in and asks,
Hey, what are you doing here?
Yeah, don't you have more hero stuff to do?
And she then mentions the Cannon Blast, since you can't exactly read it if you're just watching it on the original replay, and most people aren't just going to sit there and go through each and every step of the DVD. And then Mike gets served with a summons because he's being sued by the stripper. As this is happening, Danny's getting a phone call, but take a good long look at Nessa as she reads the summons for Mike, because that is the first and the last we will see of our darling Ice Queen this episode. Yes, this is another instance of Las Vegas kind of doing nothing with Nessa. Oh, one day she'll get another Nessa focused episode one day. But even this early on, man, like it's really evident that they had no clue what they were doing with her at all. In any event, Danny gets a call that the Zhao sisters are causing a ruckus in the Weekends of Wedding champagne brunch. And yes, they are. The paparazzi are only taking pictures of them, not taking pictures of any of the events. Mary and Delinda are basically kind of frustrated because it seems like in watching this, especially considering the different scenes that we'll see with the Weekend of Weddings, Delinda is really kind of co-captaining a lot of this because a lot of these scenes are going to take place in Mystique. And you see here this interesting mix where, again, Delinda is clearly fine with working with everybody involved. So you got the love triangle right here in this scene. If you pause it right, you have Danny, you have Mary, you have Delinda, but everything's fine. They're still working together, and they bring Danny in because they know Danny has been tasked with babysitting the Zhao sisters, and they are throwing pretzels and food at this one guy in particular, Adam, and his woman comes up and is very upset that the Zhao sisters are screwing with her man, her fiance. Summer appears to be her name by her name tag, and she's getting in their business, and the Zhao sisters say,
Stop harassing my fiance. Why? We think he likes it.
well, that's a good time for us to talk about who these Zhao sisters are. The Zhao sisters are played by Jamie Ong and Rebecca Lin, respectively. Jamie Ong, her first credit was in something called Gen X Cops in 1999 as Hayes. Skip a couple years, she plays Lee Zhao on this episode. It's Lee and Quinn. And her last credited role was in Faculty in 2017 as Madeline Crenshaw. She doesn't have a whole lot of credits. A few, including Entourage, which is another favorite show of mine. I'm actually starting a rewatch of it now, so I'll probably see her not too long from now. Rebecca Lin plays Quinn Zhao in this episode. Her first credited role is in Basketball as the cheerleaders for the Felons in 1998. Skip a couple years, she's here. She then goes on to do Dr. Vegas with Rob Lowe, Tom Sizemore, Sarah Lancaster, and a few other people, including Joey Pants in 2004 as Corinne. Her last credited role is in 500 Days of Summer as a dancer in 2009. She was a former Laker girl, and a lot of the roles, if you go into her IMDb, are either dancer or assistant secretary, HR executive. You know, you got cheerleader, dancer, cheerleader, dancer, palace girl, etc. And the other side of it is receptionist, HR executive, assistant. So she's got probably about 15 or so credits here. Most of them are split like that. The Zhao sisters are not really wreaking havoc, but they are causing a disturbance. And especially if they're getting one of these brides up in hackles about messing with her man on the weekend of their wedding, like that's a problem. So the Zhao sisters leave. Summer says that they're trash, and one of the Zhao sisters decides she's going to throw one of the mimosas in her face. Danny jumps in and takes that bullet, which, by the way, is not an easy bullet to take. That is orange juice in those glasses. That is citric acid in your eye. That hurts. That definitely hurts. In any event, Danny pulls them out of Mystique and tells them that they need to straighten up and fly right, calm down, get their S together. And the Zhao sisters start flirting with him immediately because that's the technique that they've learned works for them, is using their sex appeal to try to get the better of men. Danny gets a call from Ed. He tells one of the security guards to look after the Zhao sisters. We'll see how that goes as Danny goes off camera. Ed wants to talk to him because he hears about the incident in Mystique and wants to make sure that the Zhao sisters are taken care of. And Ed hits him with one of these lines.
You're a Marine with guerrilla training. You think you can handle 2 co-eds?
Yeah, well, gorillas don't wear 6-inch heels.
What?
Nothing. I gotta go.
So Zhao sisters take off. They're gone. As the brunch comes to an end, Mary kind of messes with him a little bit as she takes off with Karen. And Karen is looking for her fiance, Bill, who seemingly wasn't at the brunch. They must have went to go put their stuff up, and Bill probably said he was coming down to the brunch, but he never did. Instead, he hit the tables, and Bill's winning. Bill's got women all, he's got the whole table around him there, because he's playing craps. Craps is a very community-oriented game, because the shooter can win, and everybody at the table can win, and that's what craps is about, and Bill's winning. Everybody's winning, because Bill's winning. And he's got 2 hot chicks next to him, and Karen's trying to break in to at least get to his attention, and she says,
You said you didn't even gamble.
Yeah, you said you were a natural blonde. You don't see me complaining.
and you can start to see the fever take hold of Bill. And he wins again, and he says the line,
Slap my ass and call me Sally.
which I've never heard before, but okay. The 2 girls do it, and then he hugs them. And Karen is about to beat the stuffing out of Mr. Bill in front of everybody, all of his new quote-unquote friends at the craps table. But Mary drags her away before that. This is going to be a running theme. Keep that in mind. Cut 2. Mike in the conference room of the Montecito with the Montecito lawyer, as well as the stripper whose life he saved, Taffy, and her attorney, who's coming into the Montecito specifically not to sue Mike. Mike is sort of a representative. So the subpoena wasn't necessarily for Taffy. Decided she's going to sue Mike for damages. She's going to sue the Montecito for damages, as Mike puts it.
Honey, I got nothing against you.
Technically, we're suing the Montecito. They're liable, since you were acting as their employee.
And because you know a payday when you see one.
Which is exactly what it is. And the Montecito lawyer is so disaffected, so not interested in anything that's going on. He's reading different things. I don't even know if he's necessarily even reading the case that's before him or catching up on other stuff. Mike is the only one that's sitting there panicking and worried about anything because he's never been in a situation like this before. The attorney says that because of Mike's quote-unquote reckless actions, that Taffy suffered a trapezius muscle strain and she couldn't work. By dancing, she can't... Listen, I've been to gentlemen's clubs before. Yes, there are entertainers at the gentlemen's club who can do amazing feats of athleticism. And then there are also ones that just swing their hips back and forth. So, if that. So, her not being able to quote-unquote make a living is a very thin layer of ice to try to stand on, as well as...
Not to mention pain and suffering and loss of consortium.
Loss of what?
That means that I can't have sex.
I thought you were a stripper, not a hooker.
The lawyer is entirely disaffected by what's going on around him. Here's the thing. If I were in that situation and my lawyer was like that, I would feel probably as bad as Mike does right now. However, I also know that that's very typical. That's not out of the ordinary for, especially corporate attorneys. That's not out of the ordinary. But we'll get back to that when we get back to that. Let's let the dealer shuffle the deck for a second and we'll be right back.
Yeah, this shit's a whole vibe. In this bitch the whole night. They be playing both sides. Trusting them. And I stay by my bro side. Can't fuck with the whole tide. We be with the whole squad. Can't let them win. Yeah, this shit's a whole vibe.
You're listening to Whole Vibe from Jesse Evans' album Space Jams. If you like what you're hearing, you want to hear more, hear it again, or both, just go to tinyurl.com/EvansVibe. That's tinyurl.com/EVANSVIBE.
I'm back on my bullshit. No mic, but I'm shooting and I'm back with a full clip. Pay attention to the flows I'm delivering. Cut off of my bros to my hoes.
So the Zhao sisters have taken off. Danny's had to find them, and he's in a warehouse right now looking for them, and he's talking to this guy who fancies himself a producer but really isn't. His name is Groovy. In any event, he's trying to chat up all these different girls. He's got the bubble goose jacket on. Got the bullet in your bubble goose. That was very fashionable back then. And he's got the Kangol hat on and everything. It's straight though. It's not off. It's not to the back or anything. But he's Kangol. It's not the same Kangol hat as that one girl from a couple episodes ago. This one's black. But he's trying to show off his skills and trying to be funky or whatever, and he's clearly not. But he, I guess, promised the Zhao sisters they were going to be in this music video. Danny is trying to stop it, and he doesn't want... Now, here's the thing, though. There are no, paparazzi there. If anything, honestly, if I'm being perfectly honest about it, that's probably not the worst. Because if they're there to be in the music video, right? First off, they're not in front of other paparazzi, at least at the moment. Now, if they go to an after party or something like that, maybe. But they're probably going to be there for at least a few hours, if not the whole day. Just dancing, going back and forth, doing nothing, right? That music video, even the fastest music video in 2003, isn't coming out for, at the very least, a couple weeks. That's not Danny's problem anymore. Danny's problem is keeping them out of the tabloids. Keeping them out of trouble out of the tabloids. Danny, if he was smart, would have just pulled up a chair in the corner and watched the whole thing. And again, made sure that there were no paparazzi or whatever there and kept them out of the papers. They're not messing up the weekend of weddings. They're not screwing with anybody's fiance. They're dancing in a music video. Whatever happens on the set of that music video happens on the set of that music video. But again, by the time it comes out, weeks, months later, that's not Danny's problem. That's not the Montecito's problem. I just think Danny was looking at this in slightly the wrong way. He yanks them back to the casino literally by the nape of their necks. And they complain about they were supposed to be in MC Lockjaw's music video. And Danny says he's going to make sure that they stay in their hotel room, etc. And again, they flirt with them. They say,
Actually, your father told me I could use anything sort of a stun gun to keep you in this place.
I like it when you talk dirty. Come on, you can let us go. We'll make it worth your while.
but here comes Mr. Zhao. And Mr. Zhao is mad at his daughters. And they get in the elevator, arms crossed, angry, pouting. And Mr. Zhao is very angry at them for taking off. And also, Danny didn't necessarily even need to now, maybe for future references or whatever, but even then, Mr. Zhao probably wouldn't have even known they were in the stupid music video or whatever they were doing. Danny probably could have pulled up a chair and just let them do what they were going to do. They were just going to be background dancers anyway. But, I guess, for the long term, if you're trying to keep Mr. Zhao's business for the future, then maybe it's important to try to keep them from doing that. In the meantime, in the elevator, behind Mr. Zhao's back, as he's in the front of the elevator, the Zhao sisters start moving their hands up and down Danny's body. Again, you have to remember Danny is a self-insert for all the writers. He's the coolest, sexiest, most handsome man in all of Las Vegas, and the women just cannot resist putting their hands down his pants. And this is exemplified by a really clever whoosh that we get through the elevator shaft as it actually goes down the elevators. That's really clever. That's cute. That's really good job. That's really clever. As the elevator goes up to Zhao's penthouse, we see a ninja star come through. Now, if you're not paying super close attention to it, it's a really good ninja star effect. It's a really good CGI ninja star that comes through. And Danny pulls back Mr. Zhao, and they almost matrix past the star as it shoots past their faces. And the Zhao sisters try to pull Danny back into the elevator. Mr. Zhao tries to pull his girls back into the elevator as Danny is fighting this ninja and really kind of losing until he picks up a plate and smashes it across the back of the ninja's head, who then still kicks him back into the elevator, and Danny punches him in the face through the elevator as the doors close and manages to cause a break, and the assassin takes off, and Danny calls for them to lock down the pit house. We go back to surveillance, and we see Danny and Ed and Luis making his return. Welcome back, Luis, as we talk about what happened in the situation. Danny's got a bloody nose. He's gotten beat up a little bit. This is not going to be the last time Danny gets beat up in this episode. Just the first. And they talk about the guy that they have in holding, and we go over some of the surveillance techniques that they have. We see the red box for one of the first times where we actually get to match the gait of people as they're walking into the casino. That's a really cool thing. And we do a little exposition as we learn a little bit more about the hitman that was hired to come in and take out Mr. Zhao. As that happens, Luis is about to take off. Ed, with this really cool thing, says,
Luis, last time I saw a blade like this, I was working the Chinese border.
You work the Chinese border?
No, I never worked the Chinese border. But the point is that they would never use something like this for a robbery. Never.
That is a really cool... Now we're starting to get into the lane with Ed's CIA background, where mentioning it or mentioning CIA isn't the all-fire holy offense that it was a few episodes ago, where even mentioning the CIA got audible gasps or anything like that. Ed is clearly talking to Detective Luis about, they both have similar-ish backgrounds enough so that, they're kind of almost talking with each other, and instead of biting Ed's head off, it's just really kind of funny, clever. No, I was never there. Anyway, when I was there, like that kind of really clever, almost mob-like. Like, the mob, there's no mob. Anyway, when I was with the mob, that type of thing, that really clever thing. And that's going to continue throughout the duration of the show, or at least Ed's tenure on the show. We then continue to watch the guy walk through the casino floor, or at least footage of him walking the casino floor, and Ed is tasking Danny with finding out more information from Mr. Zhao, and actually specifically getting him to leave. Because for the sake of everyone in the casino, he is now not just a security risk, he is a danger. He is a danger to the casino. Zhao's deciding he's not going to leave at all. Now, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing with this. One episode ago, we had the entire Montecito pull that Voltron. Remember that Voltron robot I talked about? We had Danny, we had Ed, we had Sam. All got those three Avengers combined coming together to get Gavin Brunson out of the casino. Just for being an ass. Zhao is bringing assassins into the casino, and Danny can't get him, and they can't get him to leave? Get him to leave! Get him out! If it's I need to gamble. Stop dealing him cards. Tell the dealers they can't deal him cards anymore. This is a good time to bring in Nessa. Tell the dealers they can't, to get him out. This episode should be over. This episode should be over. It should be the weekend. We should shoot to the wedding real quick. And this part of the episode, at least, we got a couple other storylines to tie up. This part of the episode should be over. But no, Danny can't get Mr. Zhao out. Luis is talking to him, telling him that Luis works for the city, not for the Montecito, and that they can't, that with what they have, this is the best that they can do. They're going to look into trying to get rid of or catch the assassin, but that's the most that they can do. In the meantime, we see Bill at the Bellicera, and he's got himself a drink, and Mary comes up. Mary has taken the initiative to look after Bill and talk to him because she wants to make sure that the weekend of wedding goes off without a hitch. She wants to make sure that every couple gets married, and these are the stragglers that are screwing everything up. So Bill is sitting at the bar with regrets. His streak ended. He lost 5 big ones to the Montecito. Now, big ones, it depends on what you call big ones or what he calls big ones, right? It could either be $5,000 or $500. I don't know. Depending on how big you're talking. Because remember, the Warners, I don't think they had more than $1,000 with them. So it could be, it could just be five. It's probably not $5, but it's probably 500 or 5,000. It's probably 5. My guess is 5,000. Music cue here. It's on all versions that I could come across. DVD, Amazon, Peacock. The song is called Come See Me Tonight by Greencastle Homer. That's Come See Me Tonight by Greencastle Homer as Mary is scolding Bill. In any event, Bill's regretting everything and he's trying to figure out how to make it up with Karen. She's moved to a different room. He doesn't know how he's going to make it up to her. Mary suggests
Jewelry.
Hey,
You okay? How'd the deposition go?
know in a minute.
Good luck.
Thanks.
and here's where the baton gets passed, where Mary is leaving the Bellicera and Mike is entering the Bellicera. And again, there's a look there. It's a comforting look. You know each other, you're friends, right? It's not necessarily a sexy look, but at this stage, any look Nikki Cox gives you is going to be a sexy look and an enticing look. And this is part of the shipper bait for some of the people, the small contingent that believe in Mike and Mary. In any event, Mike is sitting at the Bellicera, and the attorney, the Montecito lawyer, is sitting there eating a burger, and he's telling Mike that they're just going to settle it. They're going to settle it. You could lose millions, or you could just give her $100,000 to make the case go. $100,000? $100,000. Now, I know he's a corporate lawyer. He probably doesn't care one way or the other about the Montecito group or any of their money, etc., etc. He probably sees different numbers flash across his desk every single day with people winning stuff, losing stuff, whales coming in and out, etc. So $100,000 to him is probably like a cup of coffee to anybody else. That's still $100,000 in 2003 money for a frivolous lawsuit. And the fact that he's typical, this is a lot of the way that things happen, whether the case has any merit or not. Matter of fact, a lot of times, they'll settle it because the case does have merit. So this is kind of a backwards way of looking at it. A lot of times, big businesses will settle because the case does have merit and they don't want actual judgments against them, and the numbers will be sealed, etc., etc. This one has no merit whatsoever. And this is a comment on frivolous lawsuits, but there are more actual lawsuits, I think, than frivolous ones in the system. But this is a commentary on frivolous lawsuits, and Mike is taking this super personally because he feels like this is a slight on himself. He's not going to have to pay any of the money. It's not going to affect his job in any way whatsoever, but he's being told that he can't help people. This is how he's taking it. He's being told that he can't help people and that he won't work for a company that says he can't help people. Remember the article that we looked at not too long ago where it mentioned where it said he would do anything that a civilized citizen would do, just being a good citizen? That sticks with Mike through I think all of his time here in Las Vegas. And Ed, in the role of the watcher, in the role of the all-seeing eye, was watching. Now, obviously, he doesn't have audio, but was watching the confrontation. He sees how Mike got up and is walking straight to the back. So he knows something went wrong. And again, this is another one. This is another one in this episode specifically, but we just saw this a couple episodes back, where we see these cool, clever, very good use of times. The term is not budget, but almost budget. They're using very good use of the space and time and resources that they have. at their disposal, an economy of shooting, an economy of space, of cinematography, to use the monitors as ways to transport us and see transitions in between shots without having to build, take down more sets, etc., etc. You can just see it and it works, and it's something visual that you can look at that gives you more of a sense of the world.
I quit. I'm supposed to stand by and watch if someone's about to be killed.
And we zoom into one of the monitors where we see Ed catching up with Mike in this hallway. This is their hallway. They have used this hallway over and over and over again these last couple episodes. It's going to come up at least one more time in this episode. But we see this hallway again, and Ed is trying to convince Mike that he can't quit. He shouldn't quit. Give it the weekend, okay? Just listen, do me a favor. Give me the weekend, and if you want to quit, then I won't stand in your way. Maybe. Okay? My Ed has gotten really worse. I used to do a really good Ed impression. Anyway, Ed gets Mike to at least consider it for the weekend, so Mike takes off. Ed gets another call, this time for the bachelorette party for the weekend of weddings, and he hears that the Zhao sisters are there. And we shoot back to Mystique. Again, there's the dry ice everywhere, and the bachelorettes are, including Summer. Summer is getting shots poured into her mouth as Danny walks in and he sees the debauchery. Now, keep in mind, this is network TV debauchery. So it's not as debaucherous as women's parties can. I've been in proximity to women in their natural environment with each other and alcohol and party atmosphere. This is nothing. This is tame. This is what happens when... This isn't even what happens when moms get together. This is super tame. This is as sexy as Las Vegas. This is nothing. And Danny says women are pigs, and Mary replies, you have no idea. You have no idea. No, this is nothing. So Mary and Delinda are watching the bachelorettes go off, and a fire alarm goes off, and a fireman comes in and says everyone has to evacuate if you can't take the heat. And other firemen come in, and it's firemen, strippers dancing with all the women. It is time for one of the infamous music cues, don't you know? Now, I wasn't able to procure a original airing of this episode, so I can go off as the DVDs and the streaming services. If you're watching on the DVD, the song that plays during the bachelorette party is a song called Go Go by Evan Olsen. If you're watching on streaming, it's just some random production song that mentions fire a lot, and it's definitely just some random production song. It almost sounds like AI wrote it, but it's just a random production song. In the meanwhile, Danny asks,
Is that your idea?
I've always loved a man in uniform.
boy, oh boy, dairy shippers. Hey guys, do you see that? Did you see that look? Yeah, it's true love is what it is. But the Zhao sisters are trying to escape the bachelorette party. So it's interesting. In this bachelorette party, the Zhao sisters really weren't even causing a havoc. They were annoying everybody at the brunch. But they were just kind of demure and quiet and not really doing anything in this scene. But in this scene, what we do get is the Zhao sisters trying to explain, giving a story at least, to Danny about what happened with the hitman and what kind of things Mr. Zhao is probably into, since apparently they can't kick him out for some reason, even though, well, forget about that. But the story has to continue. So the Zhao sisters talk about how Mr. Zhao was involved with the triad and has some enemies. So it doesn't surprise the Zhao sisters that somebody would be trying to kill their father. And Danny actually lets them go, tells them to be careful, but lets them go. And then we cut back to the party, and Delinda's dancing with one of the firemen as we cut through the crowd, and she's definitely flirting with him. And why wouldn't
It's
she?
over.
We see the shirtless bartenders behind
The wedding.
Mary and Karen
gone.
as they
Down the
talk
toilet.
about what's going on. Karen came to the bachelorette party,
5
but
years I was
she,
with him,
in
and I
a
thought I
drunken
knew all of his
haze,
faults.
is talking
The pro
about
wrestling.
how. Hey, hold up. What's the pro wrestling? What do you mean the pro wrestling? What's wrong? Now, mind you, sure, maybe 2003 wasn't the best year for professional wrestling. It was evolving out of the invasion angle and the invasion era and trying to figure out what it would be going forward. So it was sort of a transitional time. But excuse me, baking powder, Miss Karen. Why don't you chill out on talking about pro wrestling? She also talks about
Snoring. The third nipple.
keep the third nipple in your head. I know it's don't keep it, don't picture it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Well, I'll bring it up. Get out of your mind. I'll bring it up later, but run it out of your mind. But Karen essentially is talking about how she doesn't know Bill anymore ever since getting to Las Vegas. It's like he's a completely different person. Mary is trying to just listen to her. But she does mention the Vegas fever to Karen as Karen is about to get caught up in the Vegas fever. She's about to heat up.
Listen, in Vegas, people do things that they would normally never dream of. It doesn't mean that Bill doesn't love you, Karen. Karen?
Do you hear that?
What?
That's the sound of a fire engine. And it goes, woo, 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 woo.
And she hears a noise. It's a fire engine. It goes woo, 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 because she locked eyes with one of the firemen who's already dancing with the bachelorette who's feeling all up on him, but this fireman is looking dead at her. Like he sees what he likes and he likes what he sees. Meanwhile, we cut to Danny entering a Chinese restaurant, My Lucky Duck. Now, here's an interesting thing. After we cut from the bachelorette party, we see a skyline view of the Vegas Strip. And it's a regular clear night, and we see Danny coming into this Chinese restaurant, and it's raining. So maybe it's one of those things where part of the city is raining, part of it's not, but this part of the city is clearly raining. As Danny enters the Chinese restaurant, here's another musical note. If you're watching on the DVD, when Danny actually goes into the restaurant, what you'll hear is random production music. If you're watching on Peacock and Amazon, what you'll hear is a song called Candlelight Night by the New Kyoto Ensemble. That's it. So, interestingly enough, on the DVD, this happened maybe once or twice before, where you get just some random nonsense in the back on the original official airing, and then they put in new music on the streaming service, which is just an odd take to me. But in any event, Danny enters the Chinese restaurant because he knows one of the chefs in the back, looks like the head chef, maybe manager of the restaurant, as a former buddy of his. They went to grade school together. And Danny asks this guy about info about a triad. The triad that the Zhao sisters brought up when they were in Mystique a little bit earlier on. Now, this is another example. We've seen this in the past few episodes where somebody in the background is clearly eavesdropping, paying attention to what's going on. Danny doesn't even notice him. And we notice him. They actually make a point to make sure that they turn around and eyeball Danny up and down. But Danny asks this guy about the triad, and he kind of laughs him off like, oh, because I live in Chinatown, I'm supposed to know about the triad. Like, come on, buddy. Like, which actually raises a question, like, why? Like, it does seem kind of random. But members of the Triad are in that restaurant. So, and looking at this scene, we'll come back to him a little bit later. Danny exits the restaurant. It's not raining. It looks like it was raining as he's trying to enter his car. Now it's raining again. Here's another goof. So that's a big goof. So I've just noticed this. So as Danny is walking, it's not raining, but it was raining. Then as soon as Danny gets kicked in the face, it's pouring on them as they're outside. The weather was really fickle that night. But in any event, and even then it cuts back to a shot of Danny and it's not raining. And as he's fighting, it's not. So it cuts in and out to either it raining or not raining, depending on which shot they're in. Like they're intersplicing. So maybe what happened was, and you're not really supposed to pay that close attention, maybe what happened was as they were shooting this at night, they had to deal with the weather. I don't understand why they didn't just go with one fluid cut. Like either do one in the rain, do one out of the rain. But why splice in? This is another one of those instances where I've been watching this 20 years as I'm paying attention to this now. And even then, watching it so many times while I'm gathering notes, and I'm watching it one more time here, and I notice something that's like, wait a minute. What? That doesn't make any sense. That didn't make any sense. Why is it literally raining in one shot, and half a second later it's not raining in the other shot? In any event, Danny's getting beat up, roughed up by some Triad members. People are asking him why he's talking about the Triad or asking about the Triad. And somebody holds a knife up to Danny. Meanwhile, nobody in the restaurant's mentioning anything. Nobody's calling for anything. Nobody's leaving the restaurant at this point. So maybe that was a good tip that Danny tried to look into. And one of the guys checking Danny's pocket spies that he works for the Montecito. And the guy holding the knife says, "You know Ed DeLine?" Look at that. Montecito and Ed DeLine saving Danny without him even being there. And Ed is not there. Ed is in the hotel, opening up the hotel room with some more security guards as Bill and Karen start fighting with each other. Here is where I told you to don't think about the third nipple. I thought about the third nipple, not like that, but I'm bringing it up here again because Bill doesn't have a third nipple. You know how I know this? Because he's in this scene shirtless. His character is naked, but he's in this scene shirtless. Now, you can have a third nipple removed. This is the weirdest clip. Why am I talking? Why am I talking about third nipples? Oh, this show about Las Vegas. You can have a third nipple removed. It's not the most common thing because most people just live with it unless it's just unless something happens to that, unless it becomes cancerous or becomes a problem or hurts or whatever. But you can have a third nipple removed. There's no scar though. And in 2003 or earlier, if he was going to have, especially earlier, if he was going to have that removed, if he had one, he probably would have a scar, but there's no scar. There's no third nipple. So I don't know what Karen was talking about in Mystique in any event. Wow, what a transition to them fighting in Karen's new room as Bill sees a fireman's hat and a thong inside the helmet. And she says they were just talking, but the thong was in the helmet. The underwear was in the helmet. In any event, Bill throws the underwear at Karen. She's throwing glasses and a lamp and everything. And Ed is talking about Danny not being able to control the Zhao sisters, but Danny has to have one of his big security guards come and intercept Karen as she makes a beeline and charge at Bill and the security guards. And Danny pulls them all back into that same hallway. And in that same hallway, Mary stops Ed from completely kicking them out. Now, Ed asks, am I supposed to ignore the destruction of property, the damage to all the things that happen in the room, the disturbances? Mary says it's going to be a PR nightmare if this one couple leaves. I'm not sure how true that statement is. Is anybody who even is covering this, first off, are they going to know? are they gonna really care? If anybody's gonna be covering the weekend of weddings, it's probably gonna be a fluff piece anyway. They probably aren't going to be mentioning how many that every couple, or even know how many couples were in or supposed to be, or whatever. It's probably not gonna be a big deal. For the sake of the story, it's a big deal. In any event, Ed has to take off because something has happened and he's got his energy is needed elsewhere. In the meantime, he's leaving Mary with Bill and Karen, and Mary again does a really great groveling job for Ed. She doesn't do the curtsy like she did for Wayne Newton, but she does a really good groveling job to try to keep these guys together, and now they are clearly Mary's problem. And maybe part of this is because Mary believes in love so much. Maybe part of this is because Mary is such a hopeless romantic that she's even fighting for this clearly toxic couple. This couple that, at least in the sake of Las Vegas in terms of the fever, are just the pits. Like, if they did this, the only reason this is getting cleared like this is because the show has established that this is the Las Vegas fever taking over them, not just how they regularly are. But in the meantime, Mary gets a little bit more exposition. She says she told Bill to buy her jewelry, not show up in her room in the nude, but he did, and when he did, he saw that she was there with the fireman from the bachelorette party. Now, she says that they just talked, he had a lot of positive qualities, but again, the thong was in the helmet. How does the thong come off if she's not... The less questions asked, probably the better.
He had a lot of positive qualities.
Oh, yeah, like what? The hose? I'll show you a hose.
Oh, all right, okay, you know what?
Check it out.
That's enough of that.
Oh, mercy. In any event, Mary... Mary wrangles these two and tells them to go to a separate corner for a while. And we cut to Danny being held hostage by the folks who asked why he was asking about the triads. And Ed goes straight up to what is clearly the boss because he's in business casual. And they trade some martial arts spars back and forth before they hug. Ed knows this guy. His name is Xuan. And they have a history together. We hear a little bit about it, but not much. This guy now does imitation handbags.
We're the biggest distributor for imitation handbags in Southwest.
Get out of here. Really? No.
Take. It's for Jillian and Delinda, huh?
Thank you.
This is very good, but going legit, not easy.
Oh.
Especially when people go around asking questions about triads.
And Ed, it's interesting, Ed is super uncomfortable. Either Ed or James Caan are super uncomfortable holding these purses, even for the 30 seconds that they're in his hand. He doesn't know where to put his hands. He doesn't know where to put any. He's scrambling until Danny finally gets up and he just hands them to Danny. That's funny. But they go back and forth and they talk about how Vegas used to be.
Times change, huh? I mean, like Vegas. Used to be Mafia and Rat Pack. Now it's the Fortune 500 Celine Dion.
Now, it's not even that. You want to talk about the evolution of Las Vegas. Vegas isn't even that anymore. You got Celine Dion maybe not making it back on stage. The clientele is a lot different now. The way it's run is a lot different. Vegas is always evolving, and it's evolved into its current form. It's not the same at all. In any event, they talk about why did they beat him up if there was no triad, and it's a mutual respect thing. Old habits. And Xuan gives a little bow of respect to Ed as they all leave together. Now, I told you that wasn't the last time Danny was going to get beat up. I meant it. Danny got beat up. And aside from the nose that got busted the last time, now he's got a busted cheek and his mouth is swollen. He's limping. He's gotten beat up. And Ed ushers him to a dark corner of the casino to talk to Luis about developments in Zhao's attempted hit. And they came up with a couple of different names, and Luis came down to give the names to Danny to look through the Montecito computer. As Danny looks through the Montecito computer, he spies with his little eye something that is white. And that is the dress that's on Mary Cano as she's standing in front of the altar where the couples will get married in the weekend of weddings. As we shoot down there, we hear "Here Comes the Bride" sounding like it's being played on a harp. And Danny is eyeing Mary at the altar, and she says,
Do you mind? I'm trying to have a private girly moment here.
And it's incredibly cute. And this is also incredibly cute. She comes down, and you can see the tenderness here. Dairy shippers, is this not a scene for us? Look at this, the care and tenderness that she has for her man, and you can kind of see them almost revert almost back to childhood, as Danny says, "Didn't you say that you wanted to get married in leather pants and ride off on Prince's bike?" By the way, Prince's motorcycle in Purple Rain was dope. It was dope. And Mary replies that she was 10. "Didn't you want to get married to Daisy Duke? Daisy Duke was hot, wasn't she?" Yes. So at this point, Mary says she doesn't believe that she's the marrying kind. And Danny replies, "Didn't you want 5 kids and 10 dogs?" And Mary looks at him like, yeah. Like, she still does. What do you mean, wanted? She still does. Danny gets a call that his list is finished running, and he's got to go back to business. And we're left with the shot of Mary in her white dress, with her veil in her hands, and the bouquet right beside her, being left as her man leaves to do business. And you could see the wistful look on her face, as this is almost a metaphor for their relationship in the past and the future. This is a healthy chunk for the Danny and Mary shippers to bite down on, I'll tell you that. We cut to the Bellicera. Danny limps in and he sees Sam eavesdropping on the Zhao family as they're having an argument, and she's listening to them argue in Mandarin, so she knows exactly what it is. And again, here's the difference. Sam didn't ask one bit about Danny's face. She didn't care. She was listening to the argument. In any event, Danny comes in with a list of possible suspects and decides that that's going to probably distract them from the fight. In that moment, there's a shot here where Jamie says that she's grateful for everything Danny's done for them, and her Australian accent slips a bit. Oh yes, did I not mention that Jamie Ong was born in Australia? She was. And all throughout this, you don't really necessarily hear it. She just sounds like just any other normal American girl, but when she says that, I don't know if it's just the dreaminess of 2003 Josh Duhamel that just made her break character so much, but you definitely hear her Australian accent as it breaks there. Danny and Mr. Zhao take off, and Ed goes to talk to the Montecito lawyer. And the Montecito lawyer, he's kind of shining Ed on. Ed is the only person that the Montecito lawyer is actually stopping what he's doing to talk to and pay any attention. He wasn't paying attention during the original confrontation with Taffy. He wasn't paying attention when Mike was talking to him. He was busy eating his burger. Ed demands his attention. So Ed is the one where he gets off the phone with him and he actually talks to him and looks him in the eye. This is the first time he's done that to anyone else on this show, is with Ed. And he still kind of shines him on. He's like,
Why aren't we investigating?
Cost considerations.
I'll pay for it.
That's very admirable, Ed. These employees, they're like your soldiers.
Nothing like my soldiers, my family, my friends.
Bottom line, Ed, we can't risk it.
Ed isn't going to take that for an answer. So Ed is going into business for himself. This might be Montecito magic, because Ed is doing this. It might be Montecito magic to Mike, honestly, because Mike is on his way out, but Ed is going to interpret it or intercept it and do right by Mike here. He pulls one of the janitors over, Ruben, and pulls him over, one of these young guys, and asks him if he wants to make a couple $100.
Why don't you take a little break?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm gonna stretch the legs, wash the face, refocus.
There you go.
I assume you're interested in large amounts of money.
It's Vegas, who isn't?
If you like the podcast and you want to help support it, you can send a Cash App, join our Patreon or Subscribe Star, or buy us a coffee. Just search The Podecito on all those platforms. And we cut from that to Danny and Mr. Zhao driving down the strip. Now, this is all green screen. They are not actually driving down the strip. This is all clearly green screen. It's not bad green screen, but it's not. They're clearly not actually driving down the strip. And they talk about it, and Mr. Zhao says, you don't know these people. That list of names is worthless. They are more dangerous than you know, etc. They're invisible. They're like ghosts, except they're not invisible. Because Danny knew that he would be followed. He's almost kind of using Mr. Zhao as bait. And he sees that they've been followed, and he calls in the order to Luis to pull the guy over when they get to the next stop sign. He's right behind them, and wouldn't you know it,
Move and you're dead.
now that's a good, out of context cutscene for a commercial break. That's a good little bit of television, because if you're not paying attention, you just came into the show, you're half paying attention, you don't really necessarily know who's who, you're not familiar with Luis's voice yet, because this is only the third time we've seen him, maybe third episode we've seen him on. You're not, even though he was just in this episode, you wouldn't necessarily know who he is. It's a good little cliffhanger commercial break for the act. We cut back to Danny. Now, before we do that, the conversation that Mr. Zhao has with Danny while they're driving on the strip brings light to the title of the episode, The Year of the Tiger. He says that his girls were life-sucking she-devils. What does he expect? They were born the year of the tiger, just like their mother. Well, let's talk about what the year of the tiger was. The year of the tiger, the closest year of the tiger from 2003 would have been 1986. Couldn't have been 1986, because then the girls would be 17. And at 17, they're not getting into clubs. Even if they're daughters of whales, they're not getting into clubs. So couldn't be 17. The next year is 74, which means by the time this episode airs, the girls are 29. Now, Sam mentions that the girls go to school in New York, or at least went to school in New York. It's not clear if they're still in school or they went there and just stayed in New York, probably. But they could, listen, I have a family member who was in college for through his 30s. so it's not impossible, especially if your family just has the money to just give over there. But I would imagine that Mr. Zhao's the kind of guy that at a certain point he would just buy their diplomas. Worst case scenario. Actually, he probably wouldn't buy their diplomas. He would just maybe cut them off. Maybe he wouldn't cut them off. But he maybe for the sake of saving face, he would buy their diplomas. But maybe. In any event, they're probably 29. And both actresses are around that age. As a matter of fact, Quinn, played by Rebecca, is in fact that age. She was born in 74. Jamie is actually a couple years younger. She was born in 79. But that also means that if their mother was also born the year of the tiger, then she was likely born in 1950, which about tracks because that was actually the year that Michael Paul Chan was born. He was born in 1950. So we're talking about the Year of the Tiger, and that's where the title comes from. People born the Year of the Tiger, according to a resource I found online, are brave, competitive, unpredictable, and confident. They are very charming and well-liked by others, but sometimes they are likely to be impetuous, irritable, and overindulgent. So that tracks for these characters. With stubborn personalities and tough judgment, tigers usually work actively to express themselves boldly, doing things in a high-handed manner. They are authoritative and never go back on what they have said. With great confidence and indomitable fortitude, they can be competent leaders. They will not make preparations for anything, but can handle anything that comes along. Now, in terms of the years that these girls are born, we're going deep in this. So, if the girls were born in 1974, that would make them wood tigers. Wood tiger personalities are cooperative and communicative. Now, on paper, that sounds like a good thing. Keep this in mind, though, as we continue. People born in a year of the wood element coincides with the tiger sign are cooperative and communicative in work, and they also like to work with others to achieve common goals. Keep that in mind. Wood tigers will actively undertake tasks that are beyond their abilities. Keep that in mind. Resulting in frustration and failure. As a result, they are highly advised to pull the wisdom of the masses to avoid mistakes in work. Destiny of wood tigers, reckless. They can use their own judgment and make the right decision each time. However, they usually only pay attention to the surface of an issue, and they seldom dig into its underlying principles, resulting in the loss of many opportunities. That's the sign, that's the prediction for the Zhao girls who are wood tigers. Now, their mother, who was likely born in 1950, would be a gold tiger. Gold tigers' personalities are tender and considerate. Tiger sign people with the gold element also corresponding with their birth year attached great importance to their quiet and harmonious family life. Does that sound like a she-devil to you? The females are very enthusiastic, while the males are we're talking about the women, the wife. Gold tigers understand clearly that work is work and play is play. Therefore, they never take their work home with them, which sounds like it could have been an issue for Mr. and Miss Zhao. They are uncommunicative and seldom speak honeyed words. However, they are very tender and considerate toward their partner. Their biggest disadvantage is that they don't take advice from others, although they actually need it. And their destiny is successful, which Mrs. Zhao likely was. So, there you go. That's the Year of the Tiger. These girls and their mother apparently were born in the years of the tiger, and we're going to see some of that take place as Danny comes back into surveillance with Ed and Luis as they're talking things over, and they're going to look into Mr. Zhao and what happened, and they go over the surveillance tapes and they spot what do they spy with their little eyes but the Zhao sisters making a call to the phone that they traced back to the hitman Han. They got into a cab to make a phone call, and now both of them are connected with the crime. So we cut to the Mystique, and Mary and Linda are together again. They've brought Bill and Karen back together for a little conversation before they decide if they're going to take off, because the trip is non-refundable, especially at this point. They're in the middle of the trip. Like, a couple days have passed. It's non-refundable. Delinda looks clearly annoyed, probably from having to sit and listen to or deal with these two, even for the short amount of time that she's had to deal with them. Because Delinda has had no contact, really, with Bill and Karen together at all in any of these scenes. But it seems like even in that short period, Delinda is annoyed by these two. And however, she and Mary pull over a small cove, a VIP area for Bill and Karen to work things out with an entire spread of food for them to figure it out. In this scene, there is a musical cue. If you're watching on the DVD, the song is Amygdala, Amygdala by Frost. If you're watching on Peacock, what you'll hear in the background is production, not even music, but noises, because you hear at the casino a lot. This came back, this is another throwback to the episode with Alana de la Garza where they were by the pool and you could hear slot machines and casinos going off. Same thing in this scene of Mystique when you're watching on Peacock version. You could hear the slot machines a lot, quite prominently, which is weird. Maybe that's just a random like they just picked some random production sound that they have access to, but they have access to other production music too. And they've also, in this episode, shown that they will throw another random song that they have access to in there if they decide they want to do that, but they lazily just threw casino noises in there in the background. Now, on Amazon, it feels like somebody saw this and turned down the casino noises. Not off, because you still hear them, especially at the beginning of that scene, but turned them down. Like maybe heard the first one and was like, what is this? And took them out of the rest of the scene, or at least toned them down a lot. But that's the musical cue for that scene. Ed and Luis and Danny are looking over footage again of the hitman, and they're talking about why the Zhao sisters would want to kill their father. And Ed makes it clear that it's about him dropping money, their inheritance, all over the world at different casinos all over the world. And they track the gate of the hitman who they pulled from him following Danny and Zhao earlier on the strip, and they have him in custody, to his gate as he was walking through the casino, and they've got a match. So that's partially enough to go on, but not quite. Luis needs a little bit more. He's going to go off with Danny in a little bit. While he's doing that, Ed is off with the Montecito attorney. And the Montecito attorney, again, is giving Ed his full undivided attention. And he should, because this is where Ed shows the Montecito lawyer the footage that Ruben got for him with just a cheap camera. And let me tell you something. In 2003, cameras were not great. Handheld cams were not great. But he's got a top-of-the-line one, so I don't know if it's not Montecito property that he gave Luis to do the recordings, or Ruben, rather, to do the recordings. And we see Taffy partying and dancing, making motions with her back that you wouldn't be able to make if your trapezius was strained, and she's stripping and she's dancing for one of her clients, and she is just the worst dancer in this. I thought it's her and Dale. I would watch. Here's what I'd watch: an American Bandstand line of her and Danny. I'd watch a compilation of Taffy and Danny dancing. That would be hilarious. Just for about 30 seconds, because after that it would get pitiful. In any event, Ed tells off the lawyer, says all he needed was a video camera and $200 to break this case. So why doesn't the lawyer go out and dump the case and then go to the DA so that we could charge Taffy with fraud? Oh, and also, you owe me $200. And the lawyer thinks that he's kidding, and Ed gives him a look like, no.
See, all it took was a kid from housekeeping, a video camera, and $200. And what the hell do we pay you? You owe me $200. Oh, boy.
We then cut to the daughters in the spa. Musical note here. Yes, musical note here. As you're watching this on the DVD, the song is Alphabet by Frost. If you're watching this in Amazon or Peacock, it's just some random production music. That's Frost's second time here in this episode. Danny and Luis decide that they're going to... Well, really, Luis decides that they're going to separate the two girls as Luis comes in with some Vegas cops as well. And as they separate the girls, Danny plants the idea. Now, this, by the way, Lee tries to seduce Danny. Again, the girls are going right back to their old playbook of using their sexuality to their advantage. Lee takes off her robe in front of them and puts her bra on to kind of seductively, really? You want to show me a little help with my bra? Huh, I've always liked you, Danny. My Lee impression is as good as my Ed impression. And she says that they could be really close friends. You know, there's a whole seduction game. Luis says that Quinn isn't dropping any hints or anything like that, so he wants to take him down to the station, but Danny has the idea that he's going to plant a bug there to try to get... Now, I don't understand why he wouldn't have necessarily talked to Luis about this earlier, but we'll see what happens. So, Danny plants the idea that Quinn said that Lee, the one who's been seducing Danny this whole time, knows the hitman, but that Quinn doesn't know the hitman. So he plants that idea, and then he plants a bug on one of the shelves, and watch as the girls who have been arguing this whole time, all episode, the Zhaos can't stop publicly airing their dirty laundry, and that's exactly what gets them in trouble. Because in surveillance, it's Sam and Ed watching the surveillance tape, and Danny and Luis get back up to surveillance super quick, especially considering that Danny is limping at this point. So this whole thing has been a plot the whole time. So Danny knew. I don't know what that whole bit with Luis was in the spa. It's not like Luis, maybe, can't imagine Luis didn't know, but this whole thing had to be a plot because Sam was in surveillance and she was also interpreting. And in the meantime, she was saying that, yada, 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 I can't believe that he gambled our money away, and they turn on each other. Meanwhile, Mary hears commotion as she's outside the VIP area where Karen and Bill are, and it sounds like the stuff is crashing, banging up against each other, and Mary's pissed at this point. So she goes back there, and wouldn't you know it, they're making a commotion, but not against each other, with each other. They are having sex on top of the table, quite loudly and destructively, and they are not stopping for the fact that Mary is sitting there talking to they don't want... Remember that Anytime, Any Place, Janet Jackson? I don't want to stop just because of people walking... I don't want to stop just because people walking by are watching up. They don't give a damn what Mary thinks. I better stop, otherwise I'm going to get copyright claim. Because again, my voice is amazing. I sound like Quinn. I sound like Ed. I sound like Jay. I'm just multi-talented. I'm multi-talented. Anyway, the Zhao sisters are caught. And somehow they got a chance to change clothes. Somehow, for some reason, they got a chance to change clothes. I don't understand how that happens, but they did. They managed to change clothes into matching outfits as they get perp walk through Las Vegas, and we get one more shot of them on camera. Now, here's the thing about these shots of them on camera. Guess what? Again, real-life publications. So, as the girls get brought out, we see the newspaper, the Las Vegas Sun, with the headline, Killer Beijing Babes. Again, this is a real newspaper, and we get to stop, and on the DVD, the resolution isn't great. Here's one thing I will give to Peacock and Amazon. The resolution of this is actually a whole lot better on their services. So, as the girls do their perp walk, we see the Las Vegas Sun. This is a real newspaper, like I mentioned earlier, and the headline, Killer Beijing Babes. Let's take note of this here for a second. Up at the top says the weather, Thursday, mostly sunny, high of 70. I checked this. The weather in Las Vegas around that time period was, in fact, an average of 70 and sunny. The date says November 19th. So that also brings into account the week that this is allegedly probably supposed to air. GST and the gang probably don't know that they're going to be preempted for Fear Factor and Average Joe and all this other stuff. So that's what happened. They probably thought this was going to take place that week of November 19th, but it didn't. Off to the side, you see another article that says, singer in Las Vegas, but Metro not asked to help, by Jace Radke. After being bombarded by calls from the media Tuesday about their possible involvement in the arrest of Michael Jackson, Metro Police contacted California authorities to ask if they needed assistance in apprehending the pop star. A warrant was issued for Jackson's arrest after authorities searched his home near Santa Barbara. Jackson was in Las Vegas at the time and is still reportedly here. While authorities would not comment on the nature of the investigation, reports say it related to accusations of child molestation. Usually, if a law enforcement agency knows where someone is and they believe they may have an arrest warrant coming that they will want to be executed by another jurisdiction, they will give the other law enforcement agency a heads up so that while waiting for the arrest warrant, officers can keep an eye on that person. Officer Jose Montoya, Metro spokesman, said that hasn't happened in relation to Michael Jackson. By last night, Metro had got, and the story continues. That was real. That was real. Michael Jackson around this time, that was real. Around this time, his latest allegations popped up again, and he was in fact in Las Vegas, and a search warrant was in fact issued for his Neverland Ranch. All that, what you can look it up. I looked it up. I was like, is that around the time? Look at the authenticity of Las Vegas. Now, the story about the Beijing Killer Babes goes like this, by Robert Jablon. Robert Jablon, is that a name? Okay. Los Olivos, California. Again, authorities said Tuesday, so they basically just copied they basically copied all of it. At least the first part, and then another section says California Penal Code, which prohibits losing civilians. Yeah, so they basically just copied the story. So they decided, now the picture that they have on this is not of Michael Jackson whatsoever. It's just some random person in front of casino. But yes, that they actually used the Michael Jackson story on this to fill in the blanks of this paper. And while the Killer Beijing Babes story goes by, we see Las Vegas Life. Again, another real-life paper. There's Trouble in Paradise. High Roller Zhao. And you see Ed behind him. This looks like a cut from when he was walking into the casino the first time. Zhao sisters plot to kill billionaire dad. I should have had sons, says the quote on that cover. And we see Vegas Golfer, again, another actual magazine. Zhao sisters tell all. Dad gambled away shoe allowance. He had to go. And a chip shot wins Vegas's heart. And you see a pretty famous shot of Tiger Woods from back then in the insert, but they blurred out his face because I don't think they had the rights to actually use Tiger Woods' image or likeness on that shot. And another one, Las Vegas Weekly, shows the girls on the cover. And Las Vegas Weekly has a couple of different words on it. It's almost like a Wheel of Fortune board, but they have different words on them, including kill dad. But the words that they have on it, I actually went through Google Translate, so I don't know how these actually line up. But FK apparently translates to not. GIM apparently translates to Jim, as in Hacksaw Jim Duggan. FG, if you're going down, apparently translates to fog, FOGG. I don't know what that is. Lee, LI, apparently translates to village. And IW apparently translates to IL. I don't know how accurate that is or anything, but you have Las Vegas Weekly with Fashion Beauty Homicide, ? And then you see Showbiz Japan with Parties Over, and then West Coast tourist information and shopping and a whole bunch of... So one last bit of spotlight for the girls. You see Mr. Zhao walking through trying to cover his face cursorily, and what seemed like it would possibly be a public relations nightmare well, actually, not even about public relations nightmare with the Zhaos. it turned into a boom for the Montecito.
What are you smiling about?
It's the China field office. News of the killer Beijing babes is everywhere. We're booked for the next 3 months.
According to Sam, it's great for them. It's great for the Montecito, and Mary just look at this. Mary pulls Danny over because the brides and grooms are about to say, "I do, don't you know? Oh, how sweet Mary Connell is." And Mike meets up with Ed as he's walking through the halls, and Mike doesn't know exactly how the case was dropped. Must have been your winning charm, my man. And Mike figures out that Ed did a little something for him. So I hadn't talked about Montecito Magic because I hadn't really thought that it really applied for anything here, even with Bill and Karen. Theirs isn't Montecito Magic. Theirs is they got the fever and they got through the fever. That's something different. That's a different element. The Las Vegas fever is a different element. And maybe that was it. Maybe the fever is something that'll come into play later. But if there is an implementation of Montecito Magic here, then this might be the first time it's from staff member to staff member. It's from Ed to Mike for the first time, making it so that Mike stays more than anything else. It's not even necessarily about the lawsuit. It's about Mike staying. But Hugh Hefner is presiding over the weekend of weddings, and we see the couples go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or so couples, and we stop on Bill and Karen, and they're happily kissing and married and everything. They got through the fever, wouldn't you know. And it ends with Danny and Mary talking about how people that come to Vegas for the first time, they get swept away and they don't know better. And the glances that Mary gives Danny and the glances that Danny gives Mary until they're finally just staring into each other's eyes wantingly. They're about to kiss. Look at the look she gives that man. Look at the look he gives. Oh, dairy shippers. Oh, I'm telling you, dairy shippers. So let's go. So we're talking about the Tigers, the years of the Tigers. Did that not fit with the Zhao sisters? Was that not them? That was them. That was the Zhao sisters. The Chinese horoscope, that was the Zhao sisters. That's definitely them. That's for sure. For sure. The Zhao sisters. Now, some other musical notes to talk about here. According to Las Vegas, the series, LasVegas-theseries.com, which you could go back and check out in the Wayback Machine if you want to. There were a couple of songs that were originally supposed to be here. One is Come With Me by Alex Kidd. One is Bring the House Down by Black Toast Music. And one is You Must Remember, the U being the letter U, not Y-O-U. You Must Remember by Malou, M-A-L-O-U. None of those songs came up while I was watching on the DVD or on Peacock or on Amazon. If they were on the original airing, and they're good songs too, I heard them. Like, they could probably fit into any of the scenes in Mystique. Honestly, most of those songs. They could probably fit anywhere in between there. The Bachelorette party, probably, yeah. So they could probably fit anywhere. Or even the scene where the Zhao sisters are at the video shoot. They could probably fit there too. So they're good songs. You could add them on, but I didn't see them anywhere. This episode didn't feel as jam-packed as the other episodes. We had 3 consistent themes here. We had the weekend of weddings, we had Mike, and we had the Zhao sisters. And again, we had the danger, had the intrigue, had the sex appeal, had the lovey-dovey stuff, had the Vegas fever, had a minute amount of Nessa. But hopefully we will get past that. But yeah, I like this episode. This was really good. Again, we're in that time period where they know what they're doing. Right? The crew that's taken care of, that's doing Las Vegas, they know what they're doing, man, and they're doing it well. They know what they're doing it well. I hope to think that I'm doing it well, and if you think I am doing it well, please share with other people about the Podecito and all the places you can find us. We just opened a Locals up, a Substack up. We're in all different places. Go to our link tree and you can find all the places where you can find the Podecito currently. We are everywhere except YouTube. because YouTube is YouTube. In any event, or everywhere except YouTube, and you can find us there. Next week, we're going to be going over Dex and Violence. Dex and Violence. That's the episode with Vanko and Vera. That's the episode where Mike has to help out an old buddy from MIT playing poker and what that's going to get him involved in. That's the episode of the Swizzle Stick caper. Yes, Swizzlegate's coming. That has a whole bunch of different. It's a mostly fun episode, that one. There's the Mike. It's a very Mike-centric episode, actually, is Dex and Violence. So if Mike was about third fiddle in this one, he's going to be first fiddle now in this one. I don't, again, think that there's going to be much in terms of Nessa for at least the next episode. But this is a very Mike-heavy episode, and I am here for it. I like it a lot. And I don't know, we are going to get to see some more Nessa, so that's going to be good too. It's going to be a more well-rounded episode. I like those episodes. I really like them, and I like you joining me here on this journey as we go over our favorite show, Las Vegas, together. Thank you for coming along. There are all sorts of different ways you can connect with the show. Again, go to the link tree to find all those ways. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on all these different places. You can help support us as you see fit. If you have the means to, then please go ahead and do that as well. That helps us out a lot. And in the meantime, in between time, I hope to see you next week as we shuffle up the deck and shuffle up and deal and figure out how to get through episode 10 of Las Vegas, Dex and Violence. It's going to be a great one. I hope to see you there. And until then, take care.